My family has owned and operated a summer camp for young teens for over 40 years. My parents still technically own and run the camp, but because they're getting older, they aren't really hands-on anymore, and they haven't been for a few years now. I take care of most of the activities and daily operations. Our camp runs 3 separate 12-day sessions during the summer. The 12th day is on a Friday, and we get a 2-day break before the next session starts on a Monday. Well, all the other employees get a 2-day break. I stay behind and make sure the camp is ready for the next batch of kids. One summer, a few years ago, we had to cancel the last session because of something that happened. It started on the last day of the second session. One of the girls came up to me after breakfast and told me that she was happy to be going home. That always made me sad to hear it, because it was usually an indication that they didn't enjoy their time at camp. When I asked her what was wrong, she told me that she didn't sleep well the last 2 nights, so she was happy to be going home and sleeping in her own room. I continued to ask why she didn't sleep well. She told me it was because she was being bothered by an owl man at night. I was almost at a loss for words. I didn't know how I should react to this. I couldn't tell if she was joking, dreaming, or hallucinating. She said she saw the owl man 2 nights ago. She heard a tapping sound on the window. She woke up and saw the owl man outside. He looked like he was waving at her. She convinced herself she was dreaming and tried to go back to sleep. The next night, which was her final night sleeping at camp, she woke up to the owlman tapping on the window again. That's when she told me that she knew this wasn't a dream. He was clearly there. She went over to the window and the owlman asked if she could let him in because it was cold outside. She told him she wasn't allowed and to leave her alone. He made a sad sound and ran into the forest. While she was telling me all this, she didn't look scared or even that concerned. She just looked tired. I made sure she was okay, and she was. And then we went our separate ways. I waved it off as a vivid dream or just a crazy imagination. After all, an owl man is a ridiculous-sounding creature. All the kids left, and I started getting the camp ready for the next session that was going to start that Monday. Just little tasks to get everything in order. Throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening, I kept hearing strange noises. I ignored it for the most part, because I knew I was the only person on the grounds at this time. That night, I was staying on the grounds doing some paperwork and planning some of the activities for the next session. While I was sitting at my desk, I continued to hear these noises outside. I kept looking out the windows, but I never saw anything. Our camp is secluded in the woods, so it's not impossible for there to be an animal outside lurking around. A few hours into the night, I was finally getting ready to sit down and take a load off. Just as I put my feet up, a blast of light came through the blinds from outside. It was the motion sensor floodlight on the side of the house. I got up and looked outside. Still, I didn't see anybody or any animal out there. I won't lie, that freaked me out. This wasn't a sensitive floodlight. It doesn't just turn on when a raccoon or something small comes by. Something big enough to activate the sensor had to turn it on. And that's what freaked me out. I didn't even make it back to my chair when I thought I heard a scratching sound coming from the front door. I shouted and asked if anybody was out there, and nobody responded. I just kept hearing that scratching sound. That gave me a little more reason to believe an animal was out there. But it still didn't make a lot of sense. The animals around the camp never tried to get into one of the cabins this aggressively. I stormed over to the door and smashed my fist into it to try and scare the animal away. And it worked. The scratching sound stopped. I started listening through the wooden door, trying to hear anything I could, so I could determine what animal was outside. A few seconds later, I heard the undeniable sound of footsteps descending the wooden stairs that led to the front door. I was in shock and fear all at once. I finally worked up the courage a few seconds later to stand up and look out the window that's next to the front door. I expected to see a person standing in the driveway staring at me, but once again, it was just the darkness and nothing else. I flipped the light switch on that turns the outdoor light in the front of the house on. Once again, I expected to see someone lurking, but again, nothing. I turned the light off and went back to my chair. I sat in silence for a while, trying to figure out what was happening. During that time, I didn't hear or see anything that made me think twice. Even though I know I heard the sound of footsteps, I convinced myself that I had misheard whatever was out there, and it had to be an animal. It was the only logical thing that made sense. A few hours passed and I was getting tired. I eventually fell asleep in the chair. I'm not sure how long I was asleep when I heard a loud crash come from the back of the house. I jumped out of the chair because the noise was alarming. I could see the floodlight was shining in through the windows again. Instead of scratching, I heard a light tapping sound, this time coming from the back of the house. The tapping was coming from the other side of the glass sliding door that led to the back deck. I had curtains in front of the door, so I couldn't see outside. As I got closer to the door, the tapping was getting louder. I finally reached the curtains. I pulled them back, and standing just behind the sliding door was a man wearing a bright white owl mask. He was tapping on the glass door. It almost looked like he was waving back at me the way he was tapping. I started shouting in a panic, but the man didn't react. He just kept tapping. I tried to shout at the owl man to go away, but I think just a mumbled mess slipped out of my mouth instead. After I shouted at him, he stopped tapping. We just stood there staring at each other. The owl man grabbed the sliding door and tried to open it, but thankfully I had it locked. He asked if I could please open the door so he could show me what was in his bag. I wanted to act, but I couldn't move. The sheer panic I felt in this moment was actually crippling. I finally was able to fumble around in my pocket and grab my phone. As I was dialing 911, the owl man told me that it wasn't a good idea to call the police and that it was going to make him very angry. Obviously, that didn't stop me. While I was on the phone with the police, the owl man ran back into the forest. I tried to see exactly where he ran off to, but once he hit the darkness, he was gone. The police eventually showed up, and after a full investigation and search of the surrounding area, they never found him. They did find the owl mask deep in the woods, just hanging from a tree branch, and underneath that, a backpack with a pink t-shirt inside that had Vermont written on it with cursive handwriting. It's important to note that our camp is nowhere close to the state of Vermont. In fact, Vermont is on the other side of the country. But the worst part of all this was that wrapped inside the Vermont shirt was a knife. Not just a pocket knife or a kitchen knife, but a big butcher knife. Even with the mask and backpack, they were never able to find out who the man was, where he came from, or what he intended to do. He just showed up one day trying to get inside one of the cabins, and he didn't try very hard. When the camper told him to go away, he did. When he tried to get inside my cabin, he once again didn't try very hard. He could have easily broken a window, but instead, he just disappeared. When the police found the backpack, that was more than enough evidence to cancel the next session. We just didn't know if it was safe to have all those children here with this owl man still on the loose. We never officially stated the reason to the public why we canceled the next session. My family was able to pull some strings and keep the real reason quiet from the public. It's why I'm writing this without giving my real name or the name of the camp, because we still run the camp to this day. And if parents knew a crazy man in a mask was wandering around in the woods, we wouldn't have a camp to run anymore. It's been a few years, and nothing like this has happened since. We even hired security guards just in case. Ever since that encounter, I've been on high alert every night just waiting for him to come back. I hope every day of my life that this was just an isolated event, and that wherever the Owl Man is today, he stays there and never comes back to this camp. Double tap if your chest just tightened. Share this with someone who loves scary stories, and hit that follow button right now so you never miss another midnight nightmare.